Part 58. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 572. Once, he said, when I return from the war, I will be engaged to you. When I wipe out the enemy army, I will marry you back home in Shili Hongchuan. When we have children, we will name the boy Yuji and the girl Yunsheng. If we get old and our legs are broken, we will move to the warmer south. However, didn't wait. Life can't wait. Just wait, and everything will disappear. If you are proud of life, you must have all the joy, and don't let the golden bottle stand empty against the moon. John Killen's deep black eyes stared firmly at Cheng Ling's eyes, filled with emotions like ocean waves. His Adam's apple rolled up and down slightly, and he said harshly, Ling are you sure? Cheng Ling's eyes were filled with tender autumn water, and she said, our identities are the sponsor and the mistress, do we have to pretend, well, every time we meet? Cheng Ling's words were cut off by his kiss. John Killen's hand moved jerkily and boldly forward from her lower back. Cheng Ling is always so beautiful, especially today. When he saw Cheng Ling, who was thinking day and night, standing in the crowd and smiling at him, he felt that his mind was blank for a moment. Ecstatic and exciting. Just like this moment. Cheng Ling kissed him back. She put down all her defenses and clung to him with a hint of wild sex appeal. Her body is soft and tempting. A strange feeling ran up John Killen's spine inch by inch. He felt a naughty feather rubbing at the pit of his heart, which was far from enough to relieve the itch. So John Killen picked her up and walked from the living room into the bedroom with his long legs. John Killen gently placed her on the bed. Before she could straighten up, Cheng Ling's arms pulled her down on the bed. Then he turned over neatly, straddling him, and looked down at him. John Killen has sharp features and is stern most of the time, giving people a sense of indifference that can only be viewed from a distance but not played with. At this moment, there was no trace of coldness on his face. His fair cheeks were stained with a faint blush, and his deep eyes were filled with love, affection, and desire for Cheng Ling. His thin lips breathed out hot breath, and his sharp Adam's apple rolled gently from time to time. Cheng Ling was the only one who had seen him like this. Cheng Ling grabbed the collar of his white shirt, leaned over and kissed him. John Killen let her kiss him. Cheng Ling kissed him and quietly unbuttoned his shirt one by one. Until all the buttons of his shirt were unbuttoned, Cheng Ling opened his shirt to both sides and watched him carefully, sizing him up, just like a sculptor admiring her model. She did what she had wanted to do for a long time, touch his chest and abs carefully. The shape of his chest muscles is very beautiful. You can feel the texture of the muscles under the skin by pressing your fingers. There is not a trace of fat on his waist and abdomen. His waistline is very beautiful. If you touch it lightly, you can feel the muscle layer under the skin. So she touched it greedily and repeatedly. John Killen's palms were spread out on the bed with his palms facing up. His fingers with distinct joints were slightly bent, and the veins on his wrists were slightly bulging. He forced himself to resist his desire to knock her over. He was afraid of scaring her. Cheng Ling touched it for a while, and was no longer satisfied with the touch at this moment. The beautiful mermaid line between his waist and abdomen was hidden under the belt. Cheng Ling's fingers rested on his belt. Click. The crisp sound of the belt buckle being unbuckled echoed through the bedroom. John Killen felt that he could hardly breathe. He could no longer continue to be passively manipulated by Cheng Ling. So, he bent his legs, put his knees on her shoulders, and with a little force, he turned Cheng Ling down on the bed. Now, it's John Killen's turn to explore Cheng Ling's body. The intimacy between lovers requires no words. Many things are something you are born with and don't need anyone to teach you. The two of them were like walking on a steamy river beach in the early morning, like they had finally found a source of heat after walking in the ice and snow for a long time, inseparable. It was a scene that I had imagined in my midnight dream. It was a body that was more perfect than imagined. It was a stimulation that could not be described in any words. But it's not enough. They wish they could merge each other into their own flesh and blood. The presidential suite lacks nothing. Finally, John Killen got dressed and leaned over to hug Cheng Ling. After a while, the next step was not taken. Cheng Ling did not urge him, but whispered in his ear, "Brother Lan, I love you." John Killen bent down and kissed her forehead, which was covered with beads of sweat. "I love you, Cheng Ling." Cheng Ling looked at John Killen, who had messy hair close at hand, and asked him, "Shouldn't I say, I love you too?" "I love you too, and there is some cause and effect. I love you, not because you love me, but because I love you whether you love me or not." John Killen put his arms on both sides of her body. Looking at her, she said seriously. His magnetic voice at this moment was like sandpaper, scratching along Cheng Ling's auditory nerve all the way to her scalp. There's no way not to love him. Cheng Ling raised her leg to hook him with satisfaction. The soul travels through the 18th line. The female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 573. What a blessing it is to do it out of love. The secret pain adds a strange sense of ritual to happiness. When her hair was tangled, the corners of Cheng Ling's eyes became moist. This was the man she had loved for many, many years. He is always sane, he is always as clean and refreshing as a boy, and he never begrudges his love for himself. Even in such a maddening moment, he still used strong willpower to control his speed and strength, fearing to hurt himself. Tears ran down the end of his red eyes, fell into the pillow, and disappeared. John Killen kissed her eyes. He likes this meticulous carving process. Don't be impatient, and seriously put your own stamp on your most beloved and precious treasure. No matter what the future holds, he hopes that at this moment, she is truly happy. Because I was not sure, I checked again and again. Until she softly begged for mercy in a nasal voice. John Killen called her name in a hoarse voice next to Cheng Ling's ear and hugged her tightly. The heat in the air slowly fades away. The two people's beating heartbeats gradually subsided, and finally the magical beating rhythm became consistent. "Go take a shower," Cheng Ling said in a lazy tone. "Okay." Although John Killen said okay, he did not let go of his arms around her. He held her firmly against his chest, kissing her hair from time to time and calling her name tirelessly. At first, Cheng Ling indulged him and responded to every call he made. As a result, Cheng Ling later found out that this guy was completely insatiable, calling her name over and over like a repeater. Finally, Cheng Ling got tired of calling him. So Cheng Ling raised her hand and pushed his face aside, twisted her body slightly, and when he wasn't paying attention, she slid off the bed like a greased fish. The warmth and softness in my arms suddenly disappeared. John Killen looked at Cheng Ling standing by the bed in surprise. Cheng Ling spread his hands and said, "Hurry up and take a shower. Don't you think it's sticky?" John Killen covered her chest and showed a hurt expression. "Well, just now I called you my dear, but now your face has changed. After you played with me, you don't want to be responsible anymore, right?" Cheng Ling pulled a blanket from the chair next to him and wrapped it around himself. Listening to John Killen's aggrieved accusation, he said with a smile, "Don't worry, I have always been responsible, and I will definitely be responsible for you to the end." Okay, come down and clean up. There are still a lot of things to do tomorrow." She bent over energetically and packed up the clothes scattered on the floor. She flipped through a pile and the clothes in her hands were neatly folded, as if they were new clothes that had just been unpacked. So lively and lively. John Killen continued to play tricks. "My dear, shouldn't you act a little weaker? This way my self-esteem will be easily hit." Cheng Ling was actually not feeling well. His whole body was sore and numb, his feet were soft, and he was top-heavy. But she would never admit it. She put the folded clothes on the table next to her, then put her hands on her hips and said arrogantly, "That's it? Brother Lan, you have good skills, but don't forget who I am, it's you. Why are you so weak? Okay, stop lying on the bed, come down quickly and change the sheets. I let you do it this time, but it's me next time." Jonkilin did not move. Instead, he raised his eyebrows and looked at her, put on a very provocative expression, and said in a long tone, "Oh, yes, are you sure you can do it? There is no turning back when you draw a bow. Be careful when you talk big, and your tongue will dodge." Chen crossed her arms, looked at him, and sneered, "I, Chen like to convince unconvinced people most in my life. Wait until I finish taking a bath, let you know how powerful my sister is." After saying that, he twisted his waist and entered the bathroom. Soon there was the sound of running water in the bathroom. Jonkilin then put away the provocative expression on his face, buried his face in the pillow, and shouted happily, "Ah! Who can understand his mood at this moment? His life is complete." These days, he was suffering like years, and he experienced firsthand the hardships Chen had to endure when he was an undercover agent. But at least he had family, a lover, and friends. At that time, Chen was alone. So, he always wondered, what was Chen mood like when performing tasks? If you think too much, you will have dreams at night. The scene in the dream was very strange. Late at night, Chen was lying alone on the bed, facing the wall and with her back to Jonkilin. Her shoulders were shaking. She is crying. Jonkilin especially wanted to hold her in his arms and comfort her. But every time when he comes near, the dream will wake up. Jonkilin had more than a dozen dreams with similar plots. But without exception, as long as he wants to get close to Chen, he will wake up. Now, he finally hugged her. It seemed that he had been looking forward to this moment not just for a few dozen days, but for hundreds of days and nights. Just like he traveled across thousands of rivers and mountains to search for her, and finally got what he wanted. "Jonkilin, wake up. It's Chen who has crossed thousands of rivers and mountains to find you." Jonkilin complained about himself in his heart. Deep in his heart, there was a faint sadness. Now he can make Chen happy, but will those difficult years when she was lonely and helpless no longer exist? Therefore, he could only work harder and find a way to make her happy now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 574. At this time, the sound of water in the bathroom stopped, and then the sound of the bathroom glass door opening came. Chen voice came from the corridor, "Aren't you going to wash up?" Jonkilin put away his scattered thoughts, "I'm making the bed, I'll be there soon." The bathroom door closed. Jonkilin stopped thinking about it. He found a clean sheet in the cabinet next to him and replaced the blood-stained sheet. He had a strong urge to take the sheet away. So he began to fold the replaced sheet, but he gave up halfway through folding it. Doing this himself is tantamount to telling others how much he cherishes Chen. He can't let others feel this way. He wants to tell the world that Chen is his trophy, and no one can touch or covet his trophy. But Chen is not his beloved. The identity of a trophy can become Chen amulet. The beloved will bring unimaginable trouble to Chen. After all, he was trained in the army, so he was very skilled in making the bed. In less than a minute, he made the bed neater than when he first moved in. After finishing, Jonkilin put on his slippers and went into the bathroom. At this time, the bathroom was filled with mist. Chen slender but exquisite body appeared in front of Jonkilin without any cover. The tiles in the bathroom were all black, and the lights above were snow white, outlining her curves very clearly. Black and white. Concave and convex. Very visually impactful. At this moment, John Killen understood why so many people in history would go to war to fight for a woman, why some women could manipulate men to do things for them at will, and men were willing to be driven by them. If a woman could have half of Chen Ling's beauty, everything could be explained. Chen Ling was washing her hair with her eyes closed, with a head of white foam. She heard John Killen coming in. But after he came in, he didn't move. What is Brother Lan doing? Chen Ling wiped the foam on her face with the back of her hand, opened her eyes, and found that John Killen did nothing. He was staring at her with a very sharp and deep gaze. Just like a predator staring at its prey. Although Chen Ling is not a thin-skinned person, after all, she is now naked, and it is inevitable that she will feel uncomfortable being stared at by such a gaze. She said, "Brother Lan, spring nights are short, you are wasting time. As for the second score, I am not kidding, you'd better cooperate a little, don't run away." John Killen walked over and hugged her. The place where the body touched told her that he would not run away. Chen Ling blushed, and then turned around. "If you want to wash, wash quickly, don't touch me." The first time, both of them were a little bit overwhelmed. But the second time, it was quite gentle. Chen Ling is a detail control. She will definitely study things that she cares about very thoroughly before she is willing to give up. This time, she was in such an academic mood, studying John Killen seriously, studying every detail of this matter, and the changes after every action. John Killen tried to take back the initiative several times, but failed. First, Chen Ling's body was flexible and strong, and second, he was reluctant to really use force. So he could only let her do whatever she wanted. This time, both of them were exhausted. After taking a battle bath again, they hugged each other in bed. John Killen pinched Chen Ling's hand, from fingers to wrists, over and over again. Chen Ling was really tired and couldn't open her eyes. In a trance, she heard John Killen say, "I won't let you be alone again." Chen Ling snorted and fell into a sweet dream. But John Killen didn't sleep. His heart was filled with happiness and satisfaction. He used his eyes to depict Chen Ling's outline, her upturned nose, her heroic eyebrows, her small lips, over and over again, and he couldn't see enough. Moreover, he had a very strange feeling. Once upon a time, he often stared at Chen Ling falling asleep, however, it seemed that it was not a pleasant experience. In a trance, John Killen remembered. It was a kind of heart-wrenching pain, a kind of despair of being powerless. He once asked Chen Ling why she trusted him so much. He asked her if they had ever had a past. Chen Ling's answer was affirmative. See chapter 315, Ancestral Temple. But Chen Ling at that time did not want to talk about this past, so John Killen did not force it. Now, he is more certain that there must have been something between them. Could it be in the previous life? John Killen once again recalled that when he went to worship the ancestral temple in his childhood, all kinds of strange things happened. So, he tried his best to avoid that place. Now he has grown up and is no longer afraid of ghosts and gods. If this matter is over, he will definitely go back to the ancestral temple to find the answer. He wants to see how much of a bastard he was in his previous life to make Chen Ling always cry to sleep. As he was thinking, he fell asleep. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 575. In the early morning, Chen Ling woke up. But he wasn't woken up by his own biological clock, but by some stupid guy. Chen Ling sighed, "Brother Lan, haven't you always been quite stoic?" John Killen didn't sleep well all night, and Chen Ling slept next to him. It was strange that he could sleep well. So, he only slept for 2 or 3 hours before waking up. John Killen did not bother Chen Ling at first, but admired her sleeping face. While admiring it, I thanked God in my heart. His Chen Ling is a rare treasure in the world. She is down to earth and self-disciplined but free, she is calm and restrained but lively and optimistic, she is beautiful without knowing it, she clearly has everything, as long as she doesn't be too dissolute, she can live a life of luxury and dissipation all her life. But she didn't. She works harder than most. But she, who was so outstanding, accepted herself. This is the highest honor she has given herself, and it is also a recognition of herself. As John Killen thought about it, his mind couldn't help but drift to last night. I can't help but relive it over and over again. The more I think about it, the more I feel I still have more to say. The first time he was cautious, the second time he was passive. If it happens again, then can he be a little more indulgent and do whatever he wants? So, while admiring it, I started to move my hands and feet instead. Seeing that Chen Ling woke up and had no intention of refusing, John Killen became even more impudent. While kissing her repeatedly, he explained, "It depends on who is right." After being tossed over and over again, John Killen let her go. This time, Chen Ling really had no strength. The bones are sore and soft. Moreover, a stronger feeling than tiredness is hunger. The last time I ate seemed like a century ago. Realizing that she needed to eat, Chen Ling felt even more dizzy. Wearing a blanket and barefoot, she walked to the pantry in the living room, picked up a bag of dried fruits, tore open the package and poured it into her mouth. John Killen hugged her from behind with compassion. I called for the food delivery service and asked them to deliver it to the door without disturbing her. The things should have been delivered by now. Chen Ling reached out and pushed him away. "Please keep a certain distance from me for now, thank you." Especially ruthless. John Killen came up to her again and hugged her. Chen Ling laughed angrily. "Hey, why are you so shameless now? Weren't you cold and cold before?" She said this but did not push him away again. After a while, the meal was delivered. Chen Ling suspected that all services at White Club were open 24 hours a day. Because the meals delivered are definitely not pre-made, but are actually fried, baked, roasted and cooked on site. The dishes John Killen ordered were very rich, and he ordered 5 kinds of hard dishes: low-temperature smoked beef short ribs, butter lobster, pan-fried cod, red wine-baked pork ribs, and herb crispy roast chicken. And there are 2 servings of each. Worried about not having enough food, John Killen also added staple food, bread, and pasta. There are 2 soups, goieduk seafood chowder and cream of mushroom soup, as well as a Caesar salad to avoid greasiness. The food plates were placed on the table, and the 2 of them, wearing bathrobes, sat opposite each other on both sides of the table, devouring their food in silence. While eating, Chen Ling suddenly laughed out loud. John Killen also laughed. It's funny that they met for the first time not long ago, and they were wary of each other, but their hostility quickly turned into friendship, and now they are even more honest with each other. Laughing at the 2 of them devouring food regardless of their image. Laughter. Life is unpredictable and there is never any way to predict what will happen tomorrow. Or do you just want to laugh? Have no idea. No answers are needed. They have a spiritual connection. They also don't have to worry about the future. No matter what terrible things happen now, the next moment, or eternity in the future, they don't have to face it alone. He and she are not only lovers, but also the most loyal allies, the most capable partners, and the closest friends. Perhaps this is why humans are obsessed with finding a partner. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 576. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the car in which Frederick, Duke of Leinster was riding, stopped outside the gate of White Club. The attendant hurriedly ran over and helped open the car door. Even though the doors of the Rolls-Royce are very wide, the Duke of Leinster had to lower his head when he got out of the car. Completely different from his sickly and thin son, Jim Leinster, who stood beside the attendant like a black bear in an oversized suit. There was no smile on the Duke of Leinster's face. His son's whereabouts are still unknown. Also disappearing was the emblem of the Freemasonry. He came to the White Club today to recover the badge and inquire about the whereabouts of his youngest son. Jim has a brother, Lewis, who is 15 years older than him. Brother Lewis inherited all the advantages of the Duke of Leinster. He was tall, wise, tough, and full of energy. The future hopes of the Leinster family rest on their eldest son, Lewis. Jim, on the other hand, has been weak since he was a child, with slow reaction times, not to mention his intelligence level. The Leinster family initially kept Jim as a pet. However, Lewis died in an accident due to drunk driving. As a result, the family poured all their love and hope into Jim. Although Jim is not satisfactory, he also has many advantages. The Duke and Duchess of Leinster comfort themselves. Perhaps mental paralysis played a role, and the Duke of Leinster accepted his younger son. As Jim grew older, the Duke of Leinster slowly delegated his power, letting Jim get in touch with important people and affairs, giving him as much experience as possible, and telling Jim how the world works. Finally, he told Jim about the Freemasons. Jim was very interested and urged his father to show him what the badge looked like. The Duke of Leinster was relieved. Jim was very weak and it was completely impossible to snatch the badge from his hands, so he boldly showed the badge to his son. One afternoon not long after, someone sent an unusually exquisite invitation to the Duke of Leinster. However, the Duke of Leinster only looked at the seal and put it aside. This piqued Jim's curiosity. An invitation that can be sent to the Duke's study at Leinster Mansion proves that the other party has good strength and status. He pointed to the invitation and asked, "Father, who sent this invitation?" "Oh, this is an invitation to the Golden Island auction." The Duke of Leinster spoke concisely. "Golden Island? Where is it? What is the theme of the auction?" The son looked at him with burning eyes, so he explained, "Golden Island is near Country Y, and an auction is held every year. The auction is supported by the United Economic Association, so the theme of the auction is different from that of ordinary auctions. There are some differences. Many auction items are contraband." When Jim heard that there were activities on Golden Island to satisfy the curiosity of the nobles, his eyes lit up. "Why don't you go?" The Duke of Leinster said, "Because the time conflicts with the birthday party of Prince Morse." "Father, can I go instead of you?" Jim asked solemnly. "You?" The Duke of Leinster sounded a little unhappy. The guys on Golden Island were having too much fun. His son is not strong-willed and doesn't know how to look at people. The Duke of Leinster always avoids his son attending such important occasions alone, in case he says something inappropriate and offends someone who shouldn't be offended. But Jim was too interested. "I promise you, I will never get into trouble. You can find some reliable followers to follow me." Jim longed for adventure. Especially when the father is not around. The Duke of Leinster refused at first. Later, when Jim couldn't stand it anymore, he invited reinforcements, his mother, the Duchess, to help convince his father. The Duchess said, "Your Majesty, you can't always let him live under your protection, can you? He is becoming more and more like you when you were young. Think about it, when you were as old as him, he has become a powerful figure. How can the eagle become the overlord of the sky? He must be allowed to fly alone and experience alone." But what if he says the wrong thing or does the wrong thing? The Duke was worried. Those followers must not dare to disobey the little master's orders. The Duchess said arrogantly, "It's a mistake if it's wrong. No matter how wrong it is, he is also the son of the Duke. Who dares to point fingers at him?" The Duke was shaken. The Duchess saw her husband's relaxed expression and continued to encourage, "Besides, Golden Island auction, I'm afraid there are few residences of heads of state in the world that are safer than there, right? The Duke recalled the defense of Golden Island and thought, yes. So, he let his son go. He gave his son an invitation and membership certificate. But he did not give his son a Masonic badge. After repeatedly being reminded of the precautions, Jim embarked on a journey to the Golden Island with no return. It wasn't until Jim left home for a full 12 hours that the Duke of Leinster discovered that his son had been bold enough to sneak away the Freemason badge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 577. The Duke of Leinster returned home from the prince's birthday party to find that the Masonic badge was missing. Contact your son urgently. Can't be contacted. Golden Island is completely shielded from signals. The Duke of Leinster was so anxious that he immediately contacted the person in charge of Golden Island, but was told that the auction was cancelled. The Golden Island was attacked by bandits, and the prisoners on the island took the opportunity to rebel and defect. In order to protect the lives of the guests, Golden Island had to ask the guests to board the Thetis yacht for evacuation and transfer, and his son Jim also boarded the yacht. The Duke of Leinster rushed to the airport immediately, took his private plane and flew to Country Y. However, after he arrived in Country Y, he found no trace of his son. The manager of the Golden Island explained that the Thetis yacht also mixed with the mob and shot the guests. The Duke of Leinster did not know that the so-called shooting was actually caused by his son, and the important guests were temporarily detained at sea. After being transferred, the remaining ordinary passengers and thugs were all gassed. Jim was not among the bodies. He angrily found the person in charge of Golden Island and asked to see the surveillance of Thetis yacht. All he got was a cold reply, "Sorry, Your Majesty the Duke, all the surveillance videos have been damaged and no scenes of that day were captured. Jim will never be seen alive, and his body will never be seen dead." But the bodyguards he sent to his son were all in good order, and many of them were killed by poison gas. Because the Duke of Leinster did not show the Masonic badge, the Golden Island treated him with considerable neglect. No matter how angry he was, there was nothing he could do. After half a month of searching in Country Y to no avail, the Duke of Leinster had no choice but to return to England first and then think of a solution. His wife, upon hearing that Jim was missing, fainted on the spot. She had already lost one son and could not bear the pain of losing a second son. After waking up, I became seriously ill. I couldn't eat or sleep well, and I cried every day. She kept blaming herself, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let my little Jim go out alone. It was me who hurt you. And my beloved Louis, mother also wants to accompany you." The Duchess was devastated. The Duke of Leinster could only comfort his wife, "Maybe Jim is playful and stole my badge. He is afraid of being punished and scolded by me, so he refuses to go home. Maybe he will come back in a few days." After much talk, I finally persuaded my wife. However, as the days passed, Jim's whereabouts remained unknown. With Jim's personal ability, it is absolutely impossible for him to live alone outside for such a long time. Something must have happened to Jim. To understand this, the Duke of Leinster despaired. Although the pain of losing a son was unbearable, what made the Duke of Leinster even more heartbroken was his Masonic badge. Although Jim is dead, he still has 7 or 8 illegitimate children outside. The bloodline of the Leinster family will never be broken. He has several sons, but only one Freemason badge. Billions of dollars and even the lives of his family are not as valuable as this badge. At this time, someone sent him news. It is said that the Freemasonry has recently recruited a new member. The badge he holds is most likely the badge he lost. The Duke of Leinster came at once. He blamed the death of his son and the loss of the badge on the new members. He vowed to make this man named Fang Wenjian pay the price with blood. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 578. As the Duke of Leinster gritted his teeth and looked inside the club, his mind was filled with fantasies about how he would deal with the insidious thief when he brought him back. At this time, another Bentley drove up from the lane behind. After the car stopped, the attendant quickly stepped forward and opened the door. A middle-aged man with dark hair and yellow skin, wearing a dark blue kimono, wooden clogs, and gold-rimmed glasses, got out of the car. It was none other than Yuri Kasai, the famous wizard in the medical field, the head of Kasai Medical Group. "Dear Duke of Leinster," Kasai Yuri greeted the Duke of Leinster, who was standing in front of the club, in English with a unique neon accent. "I have kept you waiting for a long time." The Duke of Leinster came to his senses. "I just arrived too, Mr. Kasai," he said. "Let's go." The two walked side by side into the White Club. However, the two passed through the gate, walked through the long garden corridor, and arrived at the lobby. When they wanted to walk in, an attendant in neat uniforms and white gloves blocked their way. The attendant bowed and asked with a smile, "I'm sorry, sir, but do you two have an invitation letter?" The Duke of Leinster was stopped and shouted dissatisfied, "No." He was anxious to show off the stealer and regain his own badge. Upon hearing that there was no invitation, the attendant shook his head regretfully. "I'm very sorry, two guests, our club does not accept any uninvited guests." The squire was polite, but his expression proved he meant business. The Duke of Leinster was a little angry, and just when he was about to reprimand, Yuri Kasai, who had been half a step behind the Duke of Leinster, crossed the Duke and raised his hand to stop him. Yuri Kasai took out something shiny from his chest, put it in his palm, and showed it to the attendant. "Is the emblem of the Freemasonry." The Duke of Leinster clearly saw the attendant's expression change immediately. From the original cold rejection, he became respectful and flattering. "I'm sorry, two distinguished guests, you two can enter." The Duke of Leinster looked at the badge with envy. He once had such a pass that he could enter and exit almost any occasion without being blocked. "Damn thief." The attendant led the two of them through the tall corridor filled with art paintings, and turned his head and asked politely, "Excuse me, what is the purpose of coming to the club?" The Duke of Leinster keenly discovered that although the attendant seemed to be asking the two of them, his eyes were only fixed on Yuri Kasai, without even looking at himself. "Oh shit. What a bunch of snobs." The Duke of Leinster cursed secretly. Yuri Kasai still maintains his status as a senior member of the Freemasonry, so he has more information than the Duke of Leinster. Jim, the good-for-nothing younger son of the Duke of Leinster, lost his Masonic badge at some point. Jim launched a search on the yacht regardless. My own daughter had a conflict with Jim on the yacht. However, he did not share this information with the Duke of Leinster. The Duke of Leinster was too reckless and impulsive. It would be foolish to share this information with the Duke without knowing the full facts. Yuri Kasai said kindly, "We are looking for a gentleman named Fang Wenjian. Could you please help us inform him?" Unlike Leinster, Yuri Kasai's attitude towards everyone is very polite. "What else are you reporting?" the Duke of Leinster muttered dissatisfied, and shouted to the attendant, "Just tell me which room this sinister and cunning man lives in. Let's go find him." Yuri Kasai raised his hand to stop him and advised softly, "Your Majesty, don't be impulsive. This gentleman is here, and he will not leave. We must remain polite and respectful as much as possible without understanding what is going on." Said, "Maybe there is a misunderstanding. Why should we be so unhappy when we just meet?" The attendant bowed slightly to Kasai Yuri. "Thank you, sir, for your consideration. That gentleman has a distinguished status, and we cannot reveal his room." Kasai Yuri smiled and nodded. The Duke of Leinster muttered to himself, "It's not like you lost your badge, so of course you shouldn't be in a hurry. It's just that you lost a daughter, who knows if your daughter went somewhere to hang out with a man. The clogs made a clicking sound on the marble floor, which made the Duke of Leinster feel angry. He has always looked down on yellow people, and even more so on despicable waiters. However, today these two types of people he looked down upon did not even take him seriously. The Duke of Leinster restrained himself with difficulty. The attendant brought Yuri Kasai and the Duke of Leinster to a very elegant and private reception room. It is actually a neon Chinese-style reception room, with sliding paper doors, wood-colored tables and chairs, and exquisite flower arrangements placed on the table. "What would you two like to drink?" the attendant asked. The Duke of Leinster snorted coldly and said nothing. "Matcha, thank you," Yuri Kasai said. After thinking about it, he added, "I'm going to make matcha, so there's no need to find anyone to serve him. Also, please don't rush that gentleman. You just need to inform him that the Duke of Leinster and Yuri Kasai want to visit him. Please let him know come down and meet us when it's convenient for him." The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Bulletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 579. After a while, the waiter brought a complete set of matcha tea sets, tea dates, tea ladle, teaspoon, tea bowl, etc. The outside of the wooden tea set is patterned with sparkling golden waves. It is made of high-quality materials and has excellent craftsmanship. It is absolutely extraordinary. Yuri Kasai lifted up the hem of his kimono, sat on the wooden stool beside the table, and then began to wash the tea set with hot water. The process of making matcha is very complicated. Neon people like this complicated process. They believe that it can reflect the basic qualities of a neon person. Water temperature, elbow height, number, and direction of tea whisk rotations. Although the taste of the matcha produced is almost the same, they pursue and enjoy the process. If your family only has one heirloom, matcha, you will definitely try your best to support it, bask in the sun, wipe the dust, and smoke incense. If your family has countless heirlooms, Longjing tea, Taiguanyan tea, Dahongbao oolong tea, yellow tea, white tea, black tea, plain tea, kuding tea, Xiandan tea, ginseng tea, jasmine tea, and other flower teas, then you must not be so particular about useless red tape. Yuri Kasai is operating more than a dozen tea sets with a calm expression and very steady hands. In comparison, the Duke of Leinster is at the other extreme. He was like a grizzly bear locked in a small cage, pacing back and forth in a futile and manic manner. Round and round. So, for a long time, the only sounds in the room were the sound of the Duke of Leinster's crocodile leather shoe stepping on the ground, and the sound of Yuri Kasai swirling matcha powder in the teacup. Finally, Kasai Yuri made a small pot of matcha. He placed the small cup filled with light green liquid squarely across the table and said to the pacing Duke of Leinster, "Duke of Leinster, I have prepared a cup of matcha for you. You might as well sit down and drink a cup of tea. Matcha can calm your mind and nourish your energy." The Duke of Leinster is going crazy. "What time has it been and you still want to drink tea?" He glanced at the light green liquid in the small wooden cup, and the corners of his mouth turned down involuntarily. The Duke of Leinster felt that only British tea deserved to be called tea. As for the matcha from Neon Country? Hee. Matcha is very bitter. It's quite delicious when served in desserts or paired with other drinks. But if you only drink matcha, ugh. The Duke of Leinster could not hide his thoughts, and his expression betrayed his thoughts. Yuri Kasai still had a kind smile on his face. But his eyes project a gaze as sharp as an eagle. This man, who is more than a circle smaller than himself, gives the Duke of Leinster a terrifying and gloomy sense of oppression. The Duke of Leinster reluctantly raised the corners of his downturned lips, showed a forced and ugly smile, and said, "Thank you, Mr. Kasai." Then, he sat down on the wooden stool, grabbed the small cup, raised his head and poured the liquid in the cup into his stomach. Yuri Kasai also made himself a drink and sipped it slowly. After sitting down, the Duke of Leinster did not stand up again. However, he kept moving back and forth on the stool like someone with ADHD. God knows how long it took before I heard the sound of walking in the corridor. The attendant knocked on the door and raised his voice, "Gentlemen, Mr. Fang has arrived." The Duke of Leinster stopped squirming. He suddenly became nervous. Yuri Kasai stood up, adjusted the skirt, waist, and hem of the kimono with his hands, and then said gently, "Please come in, Mr. Fang." The door opened. Under the gaze of the Duke of Leinster and Yuri Kasai, a tall, young black-haired man with outstanding appearance walked in. It was John Killen. Today he changed into a very formal black slim-fitting suit, wearing a haze blue shirt, a slightly dark blue tie, and a black vest, which showed off his perfect figure to the fullest. You can tell from one glance that his hair has been carefully taken care of, but it doesn't look artificial. And on the lobe of his left ear, there was a small and exquisite ruby earring, which was extremely eye-catching. Only the earlobes were slightly red. Seeing the two important figures in the room, John Killen looked calm. He showed neither fear nor aloofness. What a handsome and noble young man. Yuri Kasai thought. My daughter must be fascinated by such a man. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The soul travels through the 18th line, the female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 580. Kasai Yuri extended his right hand and said in a friendly manner, "Hello, Mr. Fang, my last name is Kasai, and my given name is Yuri." John Killen held his hand and shook it up and down. "Mr. Kasai, I have heard of you for a long time. I am Fang Wenjian. I am sorry that I did not attend your ceremony. I just came here at midnight yesterday." Kasai Yuri apologized very sincerely. Looking at the sincere expression on Kasai's face, the Duke of Leinster felt sick. He thought to himself, "You are a Japanese dog who talks nonsense as soon as you open your mouth. You are so good at pretending. If you had not arrived in Los Angeles 3 days ago and lived in my mansion, I would have been fooled." However, the two of them agreed that they could not let anyone know that they met in advance. In order to avoid people noticing this, Kasai Yuri and the Duke of Leinster arrived at the White Club one after the other, instead of going together. For the sake of the alliance, the Duke of Leinster managed his expression. However, the Duke thought to himself, "I can't believe the words of this Japanese country casually in the future. It's too good at pretending." John Killen smiled slightly, it's okay, you are so busy with official duties, I can't invite you for such a small matter, so I didn't send you an invitation." Kasai also laughed. The two seemed to have forgotten the Duke of Leinster standing aside. This made the Duke of Leinster feel very unhappy. Fang Wenjian, as a junior, didn't take the initiative to greet him. It's really too rude. The Duke of Leinster couldn't help but snorted coldly. This sound startled John Killen. His eyes finally moved away from Kasai Yuri and glanced at the Duke of Leinster. Kasai Yuri also seemed to suddenly remember his companions, and introduced with a smile, "Forgive me for forgetting to introduce you, Mr. Fang, this is the Great Lion Duke of England, the Duke of Leinster." John Killen nodded reservedly, "Hello, Duke of Leinster, nice to meet you." The Duke of Leinster was even more unhappy. He felt like he was meeting European royal relatives, this young man was so arrogant. The Duke of Leinster snorted, looked down at John Killen, and said in a muffled voice, "Well, hello." Kasai Yuri raised a sincere smile, "Let's not stand at the door. Please ask Mr. Fang to come in. Let's drink tea and chat slowly." After that, he stepped aside to make way for the passage and made a gesture of invitation. John Killen nodded, "Excuse me." After that, he walked into the house. As soon as he entered the house, he caught a glimpse of the matcha utensils on the table and said in a joyful voice, "Matcha." Kasai Yuri followed him and replied, "It's matcha. Mr. Fang is really knowledgeable. Please sit for a while and allow me to make you a special drink from my hometown." John Killen said, "I didn't expect that I could taste the most authentic Japanese matcha in America. I am very lucky today." Please. Kasai Yuri waited for John Killen to sit down before he lifted the hem of his kimono and sat in his original position. The attendant withdrew and closed the door carefully. This time, the Duke of Leinster sat next to Yuri Kasai. John Killen sat in the seat where the Duke of Leinster had sat before. The three of them were silent. Yuri Kasai was making matcha very seriously. According to convention, during the process of making matcha, the person in charge of cooking tea is not allowed to speak. And John Killen did not speak, and he carefully appreciated the process of making matcha. This made the Duke of Leinster very anxious. He had prepared a lot of questions to ask Fang Wenjian, but in this situation, he couldn't ask them. These questions were stuck in his throat, and it hurt. But he still held back. The matcha powder gradually blended with the water under the regular stirring of the tea whisk. At this moment, John Killen suddenly broke the silence. "Mr. Kasai, do you like red wine?" he asked. Yuri Kasai was stunned, not understanding why this young man who looked very cunning asked this question. However, it didn't seem to be a dangerous topic. After a little thought, Yuri Kasai nodded and admitted, "Yes, I like drinking red wine." John Killen smiled and said, "Then, Mr. Kasai, I would like to give you a little advice." Yuri Kasai was a little unsure of what he meant by this, but still said humbly, "Please go ahead." The quality of several red wines produced by the Mayacamas Estate Vedder Mountain Cabernet in 2012 is not good. You might as well try their winery's 2016 vintage, although the date is a little fresher. The quality is excellent, because that year, California's Cabernet Sauvignon had a bumper harvest. In addition, the 2007 Stephen Ross Etienne Garden Pinot Noir red wine is not as good as the 2018 vintage. What is he talking about? The Duke of Leinster didn't understand. However, an unpleasant sizzle sound rang beside him. The Duke of Leinster turned his head and found that the sound came from the tea whisk in Kasai's hand. The whisk scraped across the bottom of the tea bowl. This is a taboo when stirring matcha powder. The whisk must not touch any part of the tea bowl. And Kasai Yuri, his expression that had always been calm as if he was wearing a mask, cracked a crack. Shock, fear, and all kinds of complicated emotions flashed by. John Killen said the name of the red wine that Kasai Yuri tasted in the Duke of Leinster's wine cellar. He even clearly stated the origin and year of the red wine. How did he know that? What else did he know? The soul travels through the 18th line. The female agent is killing crazy in the entertainment. Author, Buletin Yehoyun Li. Chapter 581. Kasai Yuri looked at John Killen with a complicated expression. The latter still looked back at Kasai Yuri with a faint smile. This means that the young man named Fang Wenjian knew his lie and that he did not arrive in Los Angeles last night. But he did not expose it. What made Kasai even more uneasy was how did this young man know these details? Could it be that the Duke of Leinster had an informant for this young man? Or did the young man install surveillance equipment in the Duke's house? Or did the Duke of Leinster betray him? Kasai Yuri looked at the Duke of Leinster with a suspicious look. The Duke of Leinster didn't understand why John Killen talked about red wine without a clue. The Duke of Leinster was rough and heroic, so he would not pay attention to details such as what estate and year of red wine he drank. So, the Duke of Leinster showed an idiotic, naive, and confused expression. Kasai Yuri turned his head. Obviously not the Duke of Leinster. Who then? Yuri Kasai's mind turned faster in an instant. His trip to Los Angeles was not arranged in the schedule, but a temporary decision, and it was very secretive. Even few people in his family knew about his trip. Fang Wenjian, How did he get this information? Could it be that the people he brought with him were not clean? Yuri Kasai felt that everyone around him was untrustworthy in an instant. At the same time, he finally realized that the man in front of him, the illegitimate son of an antique dealer, was not an ordinary cunning and treacherous businessman. Fang Wenjian was a very cunning and difficult opponent. Yuri Kasai could no longer maintain a false smile on his face at this time. He looked at John Killen with a vigilant look. John Killen kept smiling, his expression unchanged, pointed at the tea set in Kasai Yuri's hand, and said regretfully, "It's a pity for this cup of good tea." Kasai Yuri put down the tea whisk and tea bowl, bent his hand slightly, supported on his thighs, and faced John Killen directly. "Mr. Fang, I underestimated you. I guess you already know why we came to talk to you now." The Duke of Leinster was stunned. Just now they were talking about drinking tea and chatting in a friendly manner. Why did they suddenly show their cards and directly ask for punishment? The jump is too strong. John Killen thought, the dagger is revealed when the picture is finished. Your picture is too short, right? Sure enough, everything was as Chen Ling expected. If you want to deter the enemy, you can't show your full face, and you still hold the loot half covered, which makes the other party full of fear. John Killen also put away his smile and said lightly, "Yes, Mr. Kasai. I know the purpose of you and the Duke of Leinster looking for me. I am also willing to answer your doubts, and hope that we can resolve the misunderstanding and reach a friendly consensus." What is going on? The Duke of Leinster was even more confused. However, he knew one thing, Fang Wenjian knew the purpose of his visit. So, the Duke of Leinster put his right hand forward, "Then give me my badge back." John Killen looked puzzled. "Who said that my badge is the badge that your family lost?" The Duke of Leinster was stunned, and then said, "It is Joseph of the Freemasons." Ahem. Kasai Yuri coughed in warning. The Duke of Leinster immediately closed his mouth. John Killen said coldly, "Then show me the evidence." The Duke of Leinster shook his head. "You said you didn't take my family's badge, you only need to show your badge to get rid of suspicion." John Killen sneered, "Why should I cooperate with you? If someone comes to question me in the future, I have to prove my innocence. Then I will fall into the vortex of self-proof and can never get out of it. So, I won't show my badge," John Killen said. Kasai Yuri's eyes became extremely sharp. "I hope we can maintain a little elegance of civilized people and not make it too ugly. Don't try to deceive us." "Cheat." John Killen seemed to have heard a big joke, and said loudly, "Who deceived whom? What does it mean?" Kasai was a little confused. "Don't you doubt the person who provided you with information," John Killen said coldly. "Don't you doubt Golden Island at all? Don't you think that everything that happened is too coincidental and too unexpected, as if someone is manipulating and guiding all these things behind the scenes?